National parks and forests hold secrets as well as the depths of space or the unexplored ocean depths. From the misty slopes of the Great Smoky Mountains to the deserted canyons of Idaho, from the desert near Area 51 to the icy trails of Alaska, people disappear as if they have been erased from the map. Strange clues remain at the scene: an abandoned ATV with keys, a dog that returned without its owner, a phone at Mine M, and footprints that lead nowhere. No struggle, no blood, just the feeling that someone invisible is moving pieces on a board. The mysterious disappearance of Mike Herren in the Great Smoky Mountains remains one of the unsolved cases that raises many questions. Michael Edwin Herren, known as Mike, a 51-year-old resident of East Tennessee, was last seen on August 23, 2008, at approximately 11 a.m., when he departed on his ATV into the dense forest near his home on Bell Branch Road in Blount County, Tennessee. This secluded single-lane road borders Great Smoky Mountains National Park, making the area remote and difficult to access. Despite a thorough search, the only clue was Mike's abandoned ATV, which had the keys left in it, was in high gear, and had the emergency switch turned off. No footprints, clothing scraps, bloodstains, or remains indicating Mike's presence were found. Authorities believe he may have gotten lost or been kidnapped, while his family suspects foul play. Years later, the mystery of Mike's disappearance remains unsolved. Mike, who was approximately 70 inches tall and weighed around 185 pounds, wore a faded red t-shirt, khaki shorts, and sandals that day. He had distinctive features: a snake bite scar on his leg, a surgical scar behind his knee, a tattoo on his lower back, and several dental crowns. Despite mild hypertension, Mike was in good physical shape. A native of East Tennessee, he graduated from Lane High School, where he played football. He then worked as a gardener for the Parks Department. He founded the successful construction company Mike Herren Builders, where his sons, Matt and Andy, also worked. In 2007, the company sold most of its assets, avoiding financial difficulties during the 2008 crisis. Mike knew the Happy Valley area well, owned a 100-acre farm with cattle, and enjoyed caving and hiking in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. Happy Valley is a small community of about 500 people located in a narrow valley on the northwestern border of the park. The Great Smoky Mountains National Park, covering 522,419 acres, encompasses the Blue Ridge Mountains and straddles the border between Tennessee and North Carolina. Founded in 1934 and officially opened in 1940, it attracts approximately 12.5 million visitors annually, making it the most popular national park in the United States. The Appalachian Trail, connecting Georgia and Maine, runs through it. On the morning of August 23, 2008, Mike called his son Andy around 9:30 a.m. to say he was leaving his apartment in Maryville to pick up a lawnmower and trailer to mow the grass at the Happy Valley property. He also left a voicemail for Matt with the same information. Mike often visited his farm and planned to mow the grass on a neighboring property owned by missionaries. Andy, who was not at home, suggested that his father pick up the mower himself as he lived half an hour away. Later, Andy saw Mike on Gateway Road with a trailer heading towards Bell Branch Road. Around 11 a.m., a neighbor saw Mike fall in the driveway while transporting equipment, and half an hour later he saw him on a quad bike, waving as he drove by. On Sunday, August 24th, Mike's mother, Alma, became concerned when she was unable to reach him and reported this to Matt and Andy. They checked Mike's house and found his truck with a mower and trailer, but Mike himself was nowhere to be seen. On Monday, August 25th, concerned by the lack of news, his sons began searching for him. Everything looked normal at Mike's apartment in Maryville, but at the farm, they noticed that his truck was parked in an unusual spot. The windows were open, the doors were unlocked, and his keys, Idaho, and money were still inside. Mike's new ATV was missing, raising suspicions of an accident. That same day, Matt and Andy reported the disappearance to 911, and a search involving the Blount County Sheriff's Office soon began. Rain hampered the searchers' efforts, and the search was postponed until morning. On Tuesday, August 26th, around noon, a family friend found Mike's ATV a mile from his home, near Happy Valley Loop, next to an abandoned cabin. The ATV was abandoned in thick brush, with the ignition on and the emergency switch off, which was unusual for Mike. Despite the participation of more than 50 volunteers, helicopters, dogs, and drones, no trace of Mike was found. Rain hampered the search, and even cadaver dogs failed to find anything. The official search was called off on August 29, 2008, but in January 2009, clothing and bones that did not belong to Mike were found. The family organized an annual walk for Mike and offered a $15,000 reward, but no leads have emerged. Mike's sons rule out the possibility that he could have left voluntarily, emphasizing his love for his family and the absence of any depression or enemies. Theories range from accident to drug-related crime, but none have been confirmed. Mike Herren's disappearance remains a mystery, serving as a poignant reminder of the importance of caution in the wilderness. Always report your route, carry sufficient supplies, and steer clear of hazardous areas. The disappearance of Todd Hofflander and his faithful dog Ruby in the wilderness of Idaho is a story that began as a tragic loss and 10 years later turned into a mystery. The case is full of contradictions and unresolved questions, prompting speculation about what really happened in that desolate wilderness. In late summer 2010, 39-year-old Todd Hofflander, along with his friend Jeff and their black Labrador Ruby, went on a hike in the Seven Devils Wilderness in Idaho. Their goal was to scout the area before the upcoming deer hunting season. During the hike on September 27th, Todd injured his knee, forcing him and Jeff to split up. Todd and Ruby headed for the McGaffrey cabin via an easier route, while Jeff continued on to the Snake River. They agreed that Jeff would return for Todd by boat. Unfortunately, when Jeff and his father Steve arrived at the cabin, Todd was not there. Despite an immediate search, they were unable to find him, and as darkness fell, they were forced to return. The next day, September 28th, they contacted the sheriff's office, which immediately launched a large-scale search and rescue operation. The search, which involved helicopters, foot patrols with horses and mules, and dog teams, continued for 18 days. The rugged terrain with its steep slopes, cliffs, and dense vegetation made the operation considerably more difficult. Despite all efforts, no trace of Todd was found. On October 6th, a man named Tom Lindsay contacted the sheriff's office and, using dowsing, claimed that Todd was near Barnard Creek. According to him, Todd was alive and should be in the first ravine to the right of the creek. Unfortunately, this information was not taken seriously. On October 15th, something amazing happened. A group of tourists stumbled upon a black Labrador. The dog had no collar or backpack, but behaved as if it responded to the names Todd and Ruby. It soon became clear that it was indeed Ruby, alive and well. Attempts to use her to find Todd were unsuccessful. During the investigation, the police questioned Jeff. His story was corroborated by photos from their hike, but he failed a polygraph test, which aroused suspicion. During the interrogation, Jeff also said that Todd had his late father's .44 Magnum revolver with him. Shortly thereafter, Jeff's father Steve interrupted the interrogation, and Jeff left the police station. Todd's wife Julie said that Todd's relationship with Jeff and Steve was strained, and she felt that Jeff sometimes behaved awkwardly. She also mentioned that Jeff was cruel to his dog, which reflected negatively on him. In addition, Julie hired a psychic detective who suggested that Todd had been accidentally shot and buried elsewhere. But this version was not confirmed either. Almost 10 years passed before there was a new twist in the case. On April 27, 2020, a hunter discovered human remains, a backpack, and a camera in the Barnard Creek area. The site was approximately 200 feet from the trail on which Todd was believed to have been walking. Among the items found were a backpack and other items that Todd's wife confirmed belonged to him. Only partial skeletal remains were found. Due to the dense vegetation, the location where the remains were found was difficult to spot from the air. It is worth noting that there were no animal tracks on the clothing, which ruled out the possibility of an animal attack. However, Todd's revolver and boots were never found. Despite confirming Todd's identity through DNA analysis, the official cause of death was never determined. This case remains one of the most inexplicable mysteries. Why was Todd found so far from the trail? What happened to his knee that caused him to stray so far? Why didn't he respond to the search party's calls? Particularly intriguing is the fact that his dog Ruby was found alive and well in an area that appeared to have been thoroughly searched. It is also confusing that Jeff failed the polygraph test and his behavior as described by Julie. Interestingly, dowser Tom Lindsay's prediction proved to be more accurate than the information from the psychic. He pointed to Barnard Creek, where the remains were eventually found. This adds even more mystery to the story. What happened to Todd's revolver and boots? This suggests a possible crime. However, the lack of other evidence leaves us with more questions than answers. Like many other missing persons cases, the story of Todd Hofflander remains unsolved. Located in the heart of the Appalachian Mountains, Great Smoky Mountains National Park is not only the most visited national park in the United States, but also the site of one of its most mysterious and tragic stories. Within its vast expanse lies Cades Cove, a picturesque but mysterious valley that became the setting for the disappearance of 6-year-old Dennis Martin. For the Martin family of Knoxville, Tennessee, the annual Father's Day weekend was a cherished tradition. They spent it in Cades Cove, where they loved to hike and observe wildlife. In June 1969, the tradition continued when William Martin, his father Clyde, and his 2 sons, 9-year-old Douglas and 6-year-old Dennis, set out on a 13-mile hike. It was Dennis's first hike with his father, and the boy happily kept up with the adults. On June 14th, after meeting with family friends in Spence Field, the children decided to surprise the adults. They agreed to split up and sneak up on them from different directions. Dennis, wearing a bright red t-shirt, set off alone. His father, William, saw his son leave, but when the children returned a few minutes later, Dennis was not among them. The family immediately began searching for Dennis, but their calls went unanswered. When it became clear that the boy was missing, his grandfather Clyde set off on a long hike to reach the nearest ranger station and report the disappearance. By the time he arrived at 8:30 p.m., 4.5 hours had passed since Dennis's disappearance, and another complication had been added to the search operation. A severe storm had begun. The Great Smoky Mountains National Park lacked a clear plan for large-scale search and rescue operations. This led to a chaotic, uncoordinated search involving more than 1,400 volunteers, including Boy Scouts and rescue teams from neighboring states. The lack of coordination and the sheer number of people involved likely rendered any potential clues useless. As the search continued, numerous theories and assumptions emerged, including those from psychics and people who claimed to have supernatural abilities. One psychic claimed that Dennis had fallen down a steep slope, while another suggested looking for him in the trees. All of these theories proved to be dead ends. The FBI got involved. Agent Jim Wright investigated the possibility of kidnapping. Still, he found no evidence of enemies or suspicious individuals connected to the family. However, the Martin family noticed an unidentified man named Mr. Cooper, who was acting suspiciously in the search area. Even stranger was that a woman who called herself a psychic contacted Dennis's mother and warned her about this man, raising suspicions that they might be working together. Among other evidence was a report from Harold Key, who heard a distressing cry and saw a suspicious man making his way through the woods about 11 kilometers from the disappearance site. However, authorities considered these events unrelated due to the great distance between them. Despite enormous efforts and the participation of hundreds of people, the search was officially suspended after 2 weeks. The Martin family, not losing hope, offered a $5,000 reward for any information that could lead to the return of their son. Unfortunately, on September 11, 1970, the search was officially called off. The disappearance of Dennis Martin remains one of the most famous and unsolved mysteries in the history of U.S. national parks. The lack of definitive clues has led to a multitude of theories, including death by wild animals, hypothermia, or even kidnapping. In 1985, ginseng hunters stumbled upon remains believed to belong to a young boy. Still fearing arrest, they did not report it immediately. When they finally called the police nearly 2 decades later, the search yielded nothing. The tragedy of Dennis Martin led to significant changes in the National Park Service's search and rescue procedures, which ultimately helped save many other lives. However, for the Martin family, these reforms came too late and their son was never found. In October 2014, Kenny Veach posted a comment on YouTube that started this mystery. He claimed to have discovered an unusual M-shaped cave near Nellis Air Force Base. As he approached it, he felt his whole body tremble and was overcome by an inexplicable sense of dread. This experience intrigued him so much that he promised to return to explore the cave. Kenny recorded a video in which he detailed his plans. "I'm looking for the cave I found, but when I was here last time I didn't have a weapon. And something in that cave scared me. Of all the caves I've ever been in, this one made my body shake. The closer I got to it, the more my body shook. And I said to myself, okay, I'm not going in there now, but someday I'll be back." Kenny emphasized that the cave is located in rough terrain with no roads or trails. He planned to arm himself with a flashlight and a gun so that this time he could go inside and unravel its mystery. On November 10th, 2014, Kenny set off on his last expedition. When he did not return, a search operation began. On November 22nd, his cell phone was found near the abandoned M mine shaft, but Kenny himself was nowhere to be seen. After several weeks of unsuccessful searching, the case was suspended, leaving many unanswered questions and theories behind. Among the main theories of his disappearance are accidental fall. He could have fallen into one of the numerous mine shafts or suffered from the harsh desert conditions, extreme temperatures, dehydration, or disorientation. Some speculate that he may have encountered dangerous individuals, such as drug dealers or smugglers. Perhaps Kenny decided to start a new life, leaving everything behind. Others believe that paranormal phenomena may have been involved. This theory is fueled by the fact that Kenny was looking for a cave in the so-called UFO Valley, not far from the famous Area 51 and Nellis Air Force Base. Fans of paranormal phenomena believe that Cave M may have been linked to unexplained events that led to his disappearance. The tragic story of Kenny Veach serves as a sobering reminder of the dangers that wild nature can hold. His YouTube video is still watched by people seeking answers. The mysterious Cave M has never been found, and Kenny Veach's disappearance continues to haunt the minds of those who believe there is more to it than just an accident. Mount Marathon in Alaska is famous for its annual race, which takes place on July 4th. This grueling 3-mile race features a steep climb and descent, with an elevation gain of approximately 3,000 feet. The course is full of hazards, and participants face challenging terrain. Established in 1915, the race route has become a landmark tradition for locals, attracting extreme sports enthusiasts from around the world. Every year, hundreds of runners come to Seward to test their strength and conquer the summit. However, over the years, the race has been marred by injuries, accidents, and even tragic outcomes. On July 4th, 2012, 65-year-old Michael Paul Lemaitre decided to take part in this legendary competition. He was a loving husband, father, and grandfather, as well as a passionate runner. No one could have imagined that this race would be his last. That day, Lemaitre disappeared without a trace, leaving his family and friends in despair as they searched for answers. Michael was not a professional athlete, but his passion for running and his desire to challenge the Mount Marathon were unmatched. Despite the risks, he was determined to complete the course. He was last seen near the summit, where he was lagging behind the other runners. Although he couldn't compete in speed with the younger participants, his perseverance commanded respect. When Lemaitre did not return after finishing, his loved ones sounded the alarm. Search parties were quickly organized and dispatched to comb the mountain in the hope of finding any traces of him. Here is an excerpt from a real report shown on the TV program Alaska Police. We were called to a search and rescue operation. A 66-year-old man who climbed to the summit is missing. He was last seen around 6 p.m., and it is now 9:30 p.m. He was participating in the race for the first time. The helicopter is ready for takeoff with an observer on board. He was last seen near the summit, close to two cliffs where the height reaches 300 feet. The terrain there is hazardous. Time is running out. In 1 hour, the temperature will drop to 39.2 degrees Fahrenheit. We have about 40 minutes of daylight left. We will begin the evacuation soon. It is too risky to remain there. Mount Marathon often attracts beginners who underestimate its difficulty, and for some, this proves to be a fatal mistake. The police sent experienced rescuer David Lorraine to the slopes. "I don't know this mountain very well, but if a rescue operation is needed, I'm the one who has to act," he said. The trail, which had seemed passable in the morning, had turned into a raging torrent by evening, where one wrong step could lead to a fall from a height comparable to a 30-story building. The trail is slippery, the rocks are wet. People rush, slip, and in an instant it all ends with a fall into the abyss, explained Lorraine. In cold climates and high humidity, hypothermia sets in quickly, especially if a person is wet. Suddenly the police heard a woman's cry for help from the forest. "Can you see me? I'm coming! Stay where you are!" shouted the rescuer. The injured woman was wearing torn running pants, shivering from the cold and thoroughly wet. She was successfully evacuated, but no trace of Lemaitre was found. Rescuers found a piece of fabric, but were unable to confirm whether it belonged to Michael. With nightfall, the ground search was suspended, but hope remained. A helicopter with a thermal imaging camera continued the search. "If he's there, we'll find him. He'll stand out like a beacon," said the rescuers. However, the night and the following day yielded no results. More than 72 hours have passed. I probably slept about 10 hours during that time. It prompts you to reconsider what is truly important in life. "We only have the present," said one of the rescuers. Search teams, including helicopters, dogs, and volunteers, combed the mountain and surrounding area. They checked all the trails and even went beyond them, but found no trace of Lemaitre. The search was extensive. Authorities, volunteers, and family joined forces, but to no avail. In the end, the official search was called off, but Michael's family did not give up. They continued to search for answers. Over the years, individual enthusiasts returned to the mountain, hoping to find something. Some claimed to have found items that may have belonged to Lemaitre, but no evidence ever surfaced to support this claim. Michael's disappearance was not only a personal tragedy, but also a reason to review the race's safety measures. Following the incident, the organizers implemented improved communication systems and required participants to wear trackers to monitor their locations. Checkpoints with time limits were also introduced so that no one would go unnoticed. These measures are designed to prevent similar tragedies from happening again. The mystery of Michael Paul Lemaitre's disappearance remains unsolved. Some speculate that he may have died from harsh conditions or an encounter with a wild animal. In contrast, others believe he simply lost his way. There is still no concrete evidence. Lemaitre's story has captured the public's attention, and his family's persistence in seeking the truth is genuinely touching. Their struggle is a tribute to their love for Michael and a desire to find peace. Gail Stewart went missing around 10 a.m. when her son, concerned about her lack of communication, reached out to friends for help. One of them, following his intuition, went to a hiking trail in the Coughlin Mountains near Reno. The area is popular with local hikers due to its many dirt trails. Still, Gail was found in an unusual place, on a steep slope where hikers rarely venture. The 64-year-old woman's end up on the dangerous ledge remains a mystery. It is believed that she may have fallen and, in an attempt to save herself, grabbed onto a nearby tree. In an incredible turn of events, a small group of friends and relatives found her 400 feet from the trail. A 28-person rescue team arrived at the scene around 9:15 p.m. and managed to evacuate Gail within half an hour. At the time of her rescue, she was unresponsive, suffering from hypothermia, missing one shoe, and had serious leg injuries. Fire Chief Reno Seth Williams called the rescue a miracle. According to him, her son's friend decided to check the slope, suspecting that Gail might have fallen there. That's when they heard her faint cry of "help," the last word she uttered before losing consciousness. "Our department handles about 50,000 calls a year, and this case stands out," Williams said. "I arrived at the scene with my family and volunteers. Gail had been missing for 12 hours. The place where she ended up was unusual, a steep slope comparable to an extreme ski slope. We called in the city rescue team. Photos from the scene show more than 20 firefighters. Gail, clinging to a tree, was in critical condition. The blankets provided by witnesses did not help. She had almost stopped shivering, which indicated severe hypothermia. Paramedics and emergency crews provided her with first aid. Despite her injuries and the loss of one shoe, she survived. My son's friend went to that slope for no particular reason, called out to her, and heard a response. It was touch and go," Williams added. The rescue took just over 30 minutes, and Gail was taken to the hospital where she made a full recovery. However, the story took an even stranger turn. Exactly 1 month later, on March 14th, Gail went missing again. This time she was spotted in a parking lot near the Bypass Bridge, located 470 miles from Reno near the Hoover Dam. According to park officials, she went for a walk to take pictures. But Gail did not return to the car. Unlike the first time, she was not found for several hours. That day she was wearing a black long-sleeve shirt, black leggings, and black shoes, but she had neither a phone nor an ID with her. Gail is described as a woman who is 5 feet 8 inches tall and weighs about 125 pounds. 2 disappearances in such a short period of time have caused alarm among family, friends, and authorities. The National Park Service has set up a hotline to gather information. The search continues, but there is no news of Gail's whereabouts. Her first rescue is considered a miracle, and her loved ones are hoping for a repeat of that outcome. Gail Stewart's story has captured the public's attention with its mystery. 2 disappearances in a month, strange circumstances, and a lack of clues leave more questions than answers. This case serves as a reminder to be vigilant when hiking, especially in remote areas. As the search continues, Gail's family remains hopeful that she will be found alive and unharmed. And that's it. These stories serve as a reminder that even the most familiar places can conceal deadly mysteries. People go into the mountains, deserts, and forests, and never return. All that remains are fragments of evidence and eternal questions without answers. If you liked it, subscribe, and write in the comments which of these stories you found the most terrifying. There are even more mysteries and disappearances ahead. Don't miss them.